Ever feel like you're just drowning in news, like trying to drink from a fire hose?
Oh, absolutely.
One minute it's geopolitics, the next it's, markets going wild, then some terrible accident, and suddenly there's a flood of new gadgets.
It never stops.
It's relentless, isn't it? The Q cycle just moves so fast. It feels, frankly, impossible to really keep up, let alone understand what's actually going on underneath it all. That's why you're here. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Our job today really is to cut through all that noise from the past week. We've got this stack of sources covering, well, everything: global finance, politics, business shifts, tech, even some really critical safety stuff we need to talk about.
Quite a mix.
Yeah. So we're going to pull out the most important bits, the key insights, and give you that shortcut to being genuinely informed without the overwhelm. Okay, let's unpack this.
It's true. The sheer amount of information out there is, well, it's a lot.
It is.
And
Yeah.
what we want to do isn't just, list headlines. It's about connecting the dots.
Right.
Seeing how maybe a flare-up thousands of miles away actually hits your investments, or how one company's decision ripples through the job market.
Exactly. The why it matters part.
Precisely. Not just what happened, but why it's significant and what it might mean for you.
Okay, so speaking of ripples, those escalating Israel-Iran tensions feel like maybe the biggest wave right now, sending tremors everywhere. Can you walk us through what exactly went down this week? It seems pretty precarious.
Absolutely. It really ramped up this past week. We saw U.S. airstrikes reported hitting Iranian nuclear sites that immediately raised the temperature.
Right.
There was maybe a slight opening, a possibility, when Trump mentioned a 2-week delay for some Europe-led talks, a potential diplomatic window, maybe?
Oh, a glimmer of hope.
Sort of, but Iran shut that down pretty quickly. They stated very clearly no talks if the attacks continue. So it's incredibly fragile, real standoff, balancing on a razor's edge.
And what's striking is how this isn't just abstract news. It hit the markets immediately, didn't it? We saw the U.S. indices react right away.
That's right. The reaction was stark. You couldn't miss it.
Yeah.
U.S. indices took a hit. The Dow dropped, 0.8%? S&P 500 down to 0.4%. NASDAQ fell 0.6%.
Wow.
And the sources explicitly linked this movement to the Israel-Iran crisis.
Yeah.
It triggered pretty immediate shocks in bonds and, crucially, oil prices.
Oil prices. That's always key.
Always. When oil jumps, you get instant inflationary pressure.
Yeah.
And that forces central banks everywhere to kind of, rethink what they're doing with interest rates. It's that classic domino effect.
And these, you called them diplomatic ripple effects, they go way beyond just markets, right? They're affecting relationships between countries, too, like India and Canada.
Exactly. You see India actively trying to repair ties with Canada over the Niger case. That's been a significant strain for a while now, tricky diplomatic situation. And at the same time, you have Prime Minister Modi facing some criticism around G7 dynamics, especially after Trump left the summit, and then Modi met with Pakistan's army chief. It just shows you how intricate this whole international relations dance really is.
It really does.
And if we connect this back to the bigger economic picture, it really shows how differently countries are responding, even though everything's so connected.
How so?
Well, look at the central banks. The U.S. Fed is staying hawkish, right? Focused on inflation, keeping rates potentially higher.
Okay.
But then you look at the Bank of Japan, they're much more dovish. They want to stimulate their economy, so lower rates are the priority.
Complete opposite approach.
Pretty much. And then, even more diversity hand, the Swiss and Norwegian central banks actually cut rates, maybe signaling different priorities or weaker conditions there.
Interesting.
And then Brazil, they hiked rates to the highest they've been since 2006. So you have this huge divergence in monetary policy across major economies.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for, for us, for anyone looking at this global financial picture? It sounds like chaos.
Well, it means you can't just assume one global trend fits all, especially if you're investing internationally. A strong dollar, maybe driven by that hawkish Fed, could actually hurt your returns from other countries, even if their markets seem okay.
Okay, I see.
And an unexpected rate cut somewhere else might signal a totally different economic path for that region. It presents both risks and maybe some opportunities. It just highlights how crucial it is to understand the specific context for each area, not just paint the whole world with one brush,
That makes sense. A very complex global web. But let's zoom in a bit. Let's focus on India now, because it was a really profound week there, too, starting with something just awful.
Indeed. It was a week marked by real tragedy in India. The Air India Boeing 787 crash near Ahmedabad.
Just devastating news.
Absolutely. This is a Dreamliner flying to London and crash into a residential area. The scale of it. It's immense. Nearly everyone on board killed. Plus, tragically, 24 people on the ground.
Oh my goodness.
Horrifically, reports say only one survivor, a British passenger.
Huh.
It's a profound tragedy. Shakes you.
And beyond the immediate horror and the investigation, what does this mean for air safety? Especially for Boeing, right? This isn't the first time they've faced scrutiny.
Exactly. This raises very serious questions. Again, they've recovered the black box, which is obviously vital for the investigation. And that scrutiny on Boeing is intensifying.
Understandably.
India's aviation authority, the DGCA, did confirm no major system faults across the rest of the fleet, which offers some reassurance, but they've urged airlines to improve maintenance across the board.
So, a call for vigilance.
Yes. This event, while a specific tragedy, really throws a spotlight back onto safety protocols, manufacturing quality, the whole process. For anyone who flies, it's a stark reminder of the need for relentless safety standards.
Absolutely. And turning to the political side in India, things were pretty dynamic there too, weren't they? We saw a Maoist-backed band.
Yeah, banned basically a forced shutdown or strike in Andhra Telangana on June 20th. It was specifically protesting something called Operation Kagar.
Okay, what's Operation Kagar?
It refers to counterinsurgency operations against Maoist groups in that region, trying to curb their activities. So the ban was a direct response, causing disruptions and highlighting those ongoing internal security challenges.
Got it. And other political pressures, too.
Yes. Separately, the ruling party, the BJP, has been demanding resignations over those awful stampede deaths at an IPL cricket match.
Oh, right. That was terrible, too.
Huge public safety and crowd control questions there. Plus, you have ongoing roadblocks for the central government's proposals for a caste census. That points to continuing debates about social policy and representation.
A lot happening internally. But India also had to react to external events, didn't it? Something about evacuations.
That's right. Amidst all this, the Ministry of External Affairs had to quickly organize the evacuation of Indian students from Iran.
Because of the conflict we were just talking about.
Exactly. It really shows how these domestic events, protests, political demands, policy fights, all feed into the national mood, and that definitely affects market sentiment as well.
Speaking of markets, India saw quite a bit of volatility too last week. If you were checking your portfolio, you probably noticed.
Oh, definitely. The main indices, the Nifty and Sensex, both fell around 2.7%.
Okay.
And the mid-cap and small-cap indices, even sharper drops, something like 5% to 6%.
Ouch! Why such a drop?
Well, a few things. Foreign institutional investors, those big overseas funds, kept selling shares, which pushes prices down.
Right.
Plus, bond yields hit a 5-week high. That was driven mainly by those surging oil prices again that linked to geopolitics and also some nervousness about upcoming government debt auctions.
So if you're an investor or just trying to keep track of your own finances, what are the key things to watch in India right now? What's the main signal in all this volatility?
Good question. Crucial one. You need to keep an eye on a few things. Global geopolitics like Israel-Iran is still huge because of oil prices and just general investor confidence.
Okay.
Then the upcoming testimony from the U.S. Fed Chair, Powell, that always sends ripples globally, including to India.
Right, global monetary policy.
Exactly. Also, keep an eye on IPOs coming up like HDB Financial. They can suck some money out of the existing market. And, of course, the rupee's exchange rate and crude oil prices themselves remain critical daily indicators for India.
So lots of moving parts.
Definitely. It's the mix of these global pressures and domestic factors that makes the Indian market particularly sensitive right now. It calls for, informed caution, not panic.
Understood. Okay, from the big picture down to the company level, the business world is definitely feeling shifts too. Let's pivot to tech and business. Always a fast-moving area. Some big corporate moves caught my eye this week.
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah.
Amazon, for instance, gave some employees a pretty firm relocation ultimatum. Seems like a tightening up on remote work policies. Intel announced job cuts, about 10,000 positions, and notably reports said without severance pay. That's a significant move in tech right now.
Wow, no severance.
Yeah. And then you have the OpenAI CEO publicly criticizing Meta's pay structure, which just fuels that whole narrative about the intense competition for AI talent.
The talent wars continue.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is how these decisions, layoffs, new work rules like Genpact bringing in a mandatory 10-hour workday, they reflect these underlying economic pressures and also how industry norms might be shifting.
It feels like more than just efficiency drives, doesn't it? Like a bigger recalibration in tech. What does it signal for the wider economy or maybe the future of work?
I think so. For employees, it probably means adaptability is key. constantly needing to learn new skills.
Hmm.
For investors, it suggests companies are really focusing on profitability, on margins, maybe moving away from that growth at all costs mindset we saw for a while.
Right, tightening the belt.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Streamlining operations, maybe bracing for a bit of economic uncertainty, and trying to get more out of the people they have.
Makes sense. And speaking of keeping pace, lots of new product launches this week, too. Always interesting to see where the innovation is heading.
For sure. On the more consumer tech side, we saw the Trump T1 mobile phone launch. And Starlink finally got approved in India. That's potentially huge for internet access in remote places.
Big deal for connectivity there.
Definitely. Device-wise, there was the Redmi Pad 2 tablet. OnePlus launched new earbuds, the Bullet Z3, plus a whole bunch of new phones from Oppo, Vivo, Realme, iQOO, the usual flood.
Yeah. Anything else stand out?
Well, Asus launched new VivoBook S laptops with AI features built in. Philips released a high-end hairdryer, the 8000 series. And Google rolled out its Gemini AI search more broadly.
AI integration everywhere.
Exactly. These launches, especially the AI stuff like Gemini search, really show where companies are placing their bets, what they think the next big thing for consumers and businesses will be.
And as tech races ahead, the rule makers try to keep up, right? India's regulator, SEBI, took action against a financial influencer.
Yes, they banned Sanjeev Bhasan for fraudulent trading. And this really underscores a bigger issue, the need for stricter rules around financial advice given on social media.
Why is that so critical now? Seems obvious, but...
Well, it's critical because it's so easy now for anyone to position themselves as an expert online. The line between genuine insight and, frankly, market manipulation can get really blurry for everyday people.
Yeah, I can see that.
So this kind of action by SEBI is vital for protecting investors, especially retail investors, from scams or just bad advice. It does make you wonder, though, how effective regulation can be when information spreads so fast and informally online. How does it impact overall trust?
Good point. And it wasn't just finance being regulated, right? Food safety, too.
That's right. The Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, the FSSAI, enforced a new crackdown on labeling, making sure food labels are accurate and not misleading.
That feels pretty fundamental for consumer protection.
It absolutely is. It impacts you directly every time you go grocery shopping. It's about ensuring you know what you're actually buying and eating. These rules, whether for finance or food, might seem unrelated, but they share a common goal: creating a more transparent, safer environment for everyone, making sure the information you rely on is trustworthy.
Okay, so what does this all mean? We've covered a huge amount today in this deep dive.
We really have.
From that really delicate Israel-Iran situation sending tremors through global markets, to the heartbreaking Air India crash, focusing attention back on Boeing and air safety. We looked at the sharp market swings felt everywhere, including India, and then dove into all the shifts in tech, business strategy, and those important regulatory moves.
Yeah.
It's been a lot, but hopefully breaking it down like this gives you a clearer, more digestible picture of a really packed week.
I hope so too. What's really clear, I think, is just how fast things move now and how interconnected everything is. An event on one side of the world creates ripples everywhere in your investments, the products you buy, even the trust you place in companies or information sources.
So true.
And it really brings up a question for all of us, doesn't it? In this world of instant information, where distant events affect us directly, how do we get better at not just seeing the news, but actually understanding what it means? And maybe even preparing for what might come next?
That's the challenge.
Yeah. Maybe think about how you personally filter all this information coming at you. And maybe where do you think the next big global ripple might start? Something to chew on.
Powerful questions indeed. And a great challenge for all of us listening. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today.
My pleasure.
We really hope you've gained some valuable insights and feel a little more equipped to navigate this complex world of ours. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the stories that matter.